wa Quran. We will recite this whole Quran to you, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. فَإِذَا قَرَأْنَاهُ. And when we, meaning Allah, when we have recited this Quran to you, the whole Quran in Ramadan, فَاتَّبِعْ Quran. You must follow that way of recitation. Are we doing that? No. No, we're not doing that. ثُمَّ إِنَّ عَلَيْنَا بَيَانًا. After we have taught you how to recite this Quran, only then we will teach you the meaning of the Quran. So forget it. You cannot study the Quran. Forget it. You cannot study the Quran unless and until you are reciting the Quran. And the Sunnah is the Sunnah of Allah, is to recite the whole Quran in Ramadan. And when you finish, you must start again. And when you finish, you must start again, all through your life. So those of us who have not as yet recited the whole Quran in Ramadan, never. Well, if the moon is seen tonight, then you start. If you have not learned as yet how to recite the Quran in Arabic, remember, the Quran cannot be translated. Forget it. You can explain the Quran in another language, but you cannot translate Allah's word into another language. So the Quran has to be recited in Arabic. And you must recite the whole Quran in Ramadan. This is the most important sunnah of all. Allah's sunnah and the sunnah of the Prophet, Allah's blessing upon him, of Ramadan. So let us repeat. If you have never recited the whole Quran in Ramadan, then do it this year, inshallah. Now then, if Allah recited the whole Quran in Ramadan, then he will have to divide the Quran into 30 parts. Because we know that in sacred time, which is different from in sacred time, a month is comprised of 30 days, except that sometimes it can have 29 days. But there is something called bogus time for the people of Jahannam. And in bogus time, we are told, you won't believe it, you could have 31 days. Yes? You won't believe that. Bogus time said you can have 31 days in a month. The people of Jahannam. But for us, no. Bogus time says a month could also have 28 days. Did you know that, Benoni? So now Allah will have to divide the Quran into 30 parts to recite one part every night. So at what time of the night was Allah reciting the Quran? Of course, he using the medium of the angel. This is an introduction to sacred time. The question is, every night of Ramadan, Allah is reciting the Quran to Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. We need to know what is the first part, first night. What is the second part, second night? etc. But we also need to know at what time was Allah reciting the Quran to Nabi Muhammad. Let's take this first. Well then, there is such a thing as public time and private time. But Washington doesn't believe that at all. Not Washington. Public time is when anybody can come to meet the Prophet ﷺ. Anybody can approach him. So from Maghrib, when the sun sets and the day has ended and a new day has begun, but of course, you know, bogus time, the people of Jahannam, they say, no. The day does not end at Maghrib, at sunset. I arrived in South Africa on the 31st of December. And when I went to sleep that night, I woke up with gunshots. I thought it was a revolution in South Africa. No, Imran. No. At midnight, the people of Jahannam is celebrating New Year. Already? I didn't know. The day ends at midnight for stupid people. But for us, the day ends at sunset, sacred time. So Allah will not recite the Quran during public time. After Salatul Isha, now no one can approach the Prophet. Alayhi salatu wasalam. This is private time, not public time after Salatul Isha. But of course today, who cares about sacred time? So this is time for his wives and his children until it is time to sleep. And our Prophet, Allah's blessing be upon him, would sleep early. Stupid people sleep late, but sensible people sleep early. Africa in the countryside knows how to sleep early. And when you sleep early, this is deep sleep. And deep sleep is like death. So when you're going to sleep, you say, Bismillahi amutu ahya, because it's like that. So Allah will not recite the Quran to him in this time when he's going to sleep. Deep sleep. No. And when you come out of deep sleep, you have to come out gently, because it's like resurrection. So you come out of deep sleep with light sleep. And in light sleep you have dreams and visions. So Allah will not recite the Quran during the period of light sleep. But after the period of light sleep, there's the last hour. And I'm not talking about an hour comprised of something called 60 minutes. No, that's bogus time. Not with Allah and His Messenger. Our conception of an hour is quite different from theirs. But who studies the subject today? So the last hour before the dawn, when you know the cock will begin to crow, because they live in sacred time, and all the birds, they live in sacred time. That last hour, nobody sleeps. No. Nobody sleeps. Everybody reciting the Quran in Medina. So this is the time when Allah will recite the Quran to Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And then, what is the first juz? Allah will have to divide the Quran. Did He divide the Quran? Yes, He did. Where is the proof? Suratul Isra. He says, Quranan faraqnahu. I have divided this Quran. meaning into surahs, into surahs. Why did he separate the Quran into surahs? Not for study. You don't study the Quran first Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Fatiha, and then Surah Al-Baqarah, and then Surah Al. That's for Washington. That's not the way we study the Quran. So why did he separate the Quran into surahs? Quranan faraknahu litakra'ahu. I have separated this Quran into surahs not for the purpose of study, but for recitation. Faraknahu litakra'ahu, that you might recite this Quran based on surahs. So if Allah has divided the Quran into surahs, when we are reciting the Quran now, don't be a fool and divide a surah and take a knife. No, let's leave the knife. Let's take a chopper and you chop. Huh? How foolish. And you chop Surah Al-Baqarah. That's why he gave you the longest surah of all at the beginning, to see who is going to pick up a chopper to chop the surah. And if you do that, for Rabbika, O Muhammad, I take an oath by your Rabb, لَنَسْأَلَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ عَمَّا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. I'm going to question every single one of them for what they have done to this Quran. So you're going to recite Al-Fatiha because that's the key. Every day you must begin with Al-Fatiha. And after Al-Fatiha, the whole of Al-Baqarah. That is the way to recite the Quran. And if they want to listen to you, leave them alone and you go the right way. And on the second day, Al-Fatiha, and the whole of Ali Imran, and on the third day, Al-Fatiha, and the whole of An-Nisa, and on the fourth day, Al-Fatiha, and the whole of Al-Ma'idah, and on the fifth day, Al-Fatiha, and the whole of Al-An'am, and the sixth day, Al-Fatiha, and the whole of Al-A'raf. We don't have the time in a short talk to give you all the days and the jewels for each day. But you can read it in my book entitled The Quran and the Moon. Allah has divided the Quran for recitation, that you must always begin the recitation of the Quran with the new moon. With the new moon. And when you do that, you can count the days of the moon with your juz of the Quran. So today, you should have recited the 29th juz of the Quran. And tonight, you look for the moon. If the moon is not seen, you must still have a juz left for tomorrow. But if the moon is seen tonight, then you have a small piece to recite quickly, and you khatam the Quran. Now then, we have to stop there and to ask, why do we have Salatul Taraweeh? This is a sacred month, not the four sacred months when fighting is prohibited. This is a sacred month because of the Quran. Because the Quran came down in this month. And in this month, Nabi Muhammad ﷺ is listening to the whole Quran. It's a fascinating subject, but we need about an hour to teach the subject. So why is there Salatul Taraweeh? Answer, Salatul Taraweeh was instituted in the nights of Ramadan to commemorate this event, to commemorate this event that every night Allah is reciting the Quran. So for Salatul Taraweeh, make sure that you recite the Quran the way that Allah was reciting it. Answer me, did Allah ever recite the Quran at 95 miles an hour? Would Allah do such a stupid thing to recite the Quran at 95 miles an hour? He should be arrested, sent to jail for disrespecting the Quran. What can we do in an age when people have lost the capacity to think? No, he says, Rattil al-Quran tartila. You must recite the Quran with melody, melodiously. So Salatul Taraweeh, choose someone with a beautiful voice. This Khatib doesn't have the voice for melody. This was Khatib can give lectures. But there are others who have a melodious voice. So choose someone with a melodious voice and who recites the Quran accurately. And let him lead the Salat. And when he is reciting the Quran, he must do it melodiously, meaning slowly. And if you don't know the meaning of the Quran, and you're only listening to the recitation, and when someone asks, what did he say? And you say, I don't know, it was a nice tune. If you remain like that, year after year, you are disrespecting the Quran. And then you are disrespecting Allah. So go to the Imam and say, I want to learn. And let the Imam get someone to teach you. So you'll understand what is being recited. And when you can understand what is being recited, and the Imam is reciting slowly, when you have someone reciting at 95 miles an hour, leave that masjid, fly away from it, don't be a part of that area. Go to a place where the Quran is being recited beautifully, melodiously. And when you are listening to this Imam reciting the Quran, you must have in your heart that this is to commemorate Allah reciting the Quran to Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu. And then you will cry in Salatul Taraweeh. This Khatib is 84 years of age by the moon. I have to say by the moon because ask anybody their age and they give you the sun. But Allah says something else in the Quran. He says, I gave you the moon. لِتَعْلَمُوا عَدَدَ السِّنِينَ وَالْحِسَابَ. I gave you the moon to count the years. And this Imam at this age has traveled extensively, more than nearly all of you. And I have spent Ramadan many parts of the world. And I have never, ever experienced a Ramadan in which in Salatul Taraweeh, people are crying. People are crying. But if you go back in time, to the time of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, the companions of the Prophet, Allah's blessing be upon him, who lived in a different age from this age of nonsense, this age of darkness. They would cry when the Quran is Not only because of the beauty of the Quran, not just because the words of the Quran are touching the heart, but also because they know that this is meant to commemorate that historic event when Allah was reciting the Quran to Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam every night of Ramadan. So let us now end with the dua that Allah might bless us this Ramadan. Not only that we seek forgiveness for sins in Ramadan, but that in this Ramadan our hearts might return to the Quran, to return to the recitation of the whole Quran in Ramadan, and to a Salatul Taraweeh in which we'll cry, thank you, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.